Hey there folks, I'm Ruby Juice, and welcome to part 2 of my global market tutorial. So in part 1, I talked about the basics, getting your warehouses, getting them set up, doing some local flips and making money that way. And now this time, I want to talk to you about the more complex part of the global market, imports and exports. So you've got your warehouse and you've got some crops and you want to be able to move them from one country to another. How do you do that? First things first, you need import and export permits. Now these work exactly like they sound. If you want to be able to take in crops at one of your warehouses, you need an import license, and that will allow you to send crops there. If you want to take crops from a warehouse and send them somewhere else, you need an export license. Now it currently isn't specified on the website, but import and export licenses cost $1,000 each. So for each warehouse, if you wanted to get an import and an export license, you'd need to spend $2,000. Now you won't necessarily need both for every warehouse. For instance, when I first started out, I had my home warehouse in Sweden, so I got an export permit for Sweden. And then I had a couple other warehouses in places where prices were higher for things like soybeans and canola. And so I got import permits for those warehouses. I didn't need to send anything from those back to Sweden. I didn't need to import anything at my Sweden warehouse, so I just got those ones to start out. Now you can see I've expanded a bit and gone with import and export licenses at most of them, but I've got 6 with import licenses and only 4 with exports. And I only get them as I need them. If I see a really good deal where I can buy and ship and sell, then I'll get the permit that I need to for that. And of course, I'll get to the buy, ship, sell a little bit later on as well. Import and export licenses and the ability to ship crops from one country to another serves 2 main purposes. The first is similar to local flips. You could buy crops in one country, ship them to another where the price is higher, and then sell them there. Or you can export the crops from your server after you've harvested them, and then ship them to another country to sell them for a much higher price. The basic premise, of course, is getting the best price possible for the crops that you've got. The only difference is whether you harvest them and then export them from the server to the global market, or if you buy them in a warehouse on the global market and then ship them to a different country to sell them then. So let me show you some examples. As I said, I reside on the Bjornholm map in Sweden. And so I've got 50,000 liters of capacity there. I brought 45,000 liters to the custom silos on my server, went through the process to send them to my warehouse, and then here they were in Sweden. And so if I take a look at the prices for canola here in Sweden, they're at about $630 per 1,000 liters. And so I thought to myself, I can probably get a better price somewhere else. Let me look at my other warehouses. And so I looked at Egypt, and I looked at canola in Egypt. And if you look at the sell orders, they're very high priced, up in the 900s, almost to $1,000 per 1,000 liters. And there are also no buy orders, which is a good way to tell that the price is very high in that area, because there's a lot of competition when the price is high. But I saw a few buy orders popping up every once in a while, and so I thought I should ship my canola to Egypt, and I'll be able to sell it there for a much higher price. And so you do that through the warehouse page. So once you have an export permit for one of your warehouses, you'll have this area here on the right-hand side of the screen. If you don't, you'll see something like this. You lack an export license for this country. So right now I don't have an export license for Poland because I've intended for it to be a place where I'll do local flips, or I'll maybe send some crops, so I have an import license, but I haven't needed an export license there. So for Sweden, I have an export license, so I have this area here on the right-hand side. You choose from the drop-down list which country you want to send the crops to, and it shows you behind each one how much space you have left in your warehouse in that country. So in this case, I was sending my crops to Egypt. You choose the product that you're sending, and then you type in how much you want to send to that warehouse. And you're able to send up to 3 different crops at once. Of course, you do need the capacity in the warehouse that's going to receive the goods. And then you choose between 2 different shipping methods. standard shipping, which costs you a flat rate of $500 plus $10 per 1,000 liters. So for instance, if you were sending 10,000 liters of crop, you'd pay another $100 for a total shipping fee of $600. Or express shipping, which is $1,500 base rate plus $30 per 1,000 liters. And so, how long does shipping take, you might ask? So once you hit ship goods, it will deduct the money from your Meta account for the shipping and send it off to that country. But it's not instantaneous. Basically, in the global market, the world is split into 3 parts: the western portion, or the Americas, central portion, Europe and Africa, and the eastern portion, Asia and Oceania. If you're shipping your crops within one of those areas, so say from Sweden to Egypt, or Sweden to Ireland, or the United States to Canada, then the shipping will take 4 hours, and that's 4 real-life hours. If you're shipping across one area, so say from the United States to Sweden, or from Sweden to Japan, then the shipping is 8 hours. And if you ship across 2 areas, which is either the west to the east or the east to the west, if you're in the central region, you have the added benefit of only shipping across one area. So if you ship across 2 areas, so all the way across the world, then the shipping is going to take 12 real-life hours. If you pay for express shipping, it's going to cut that time in half. So if you're shipping within the area, then it's going to take 2 hours instead of the 4. So there's no guarantees that by the time you ship your crop to another country, that the buy orders that you've seen with really high prices are still there. They might have been snatched up by other players. Maybe they've done a local flip there and taken up that buy order. Maybe they've shipped their crops there because they also saw the high prices. Whatever it might be, they might be gone. But the good news is, new buy orders are generated every so often. I'm not sure exactly how frequently they pop up or if there's any rhyme or reason to it. I just know that every once in a while when I check, there'll be new buy orders with different prices, sometimes high, sometimes a little bit lower, and then you can sell your crops if you've got them in that warehouse. So there's a little bit of competition to it in terms of getting to the buy orders before other players do, but there's also just some patience involved. It's not like selling your crops in-game, where you can just sell them all to a sell point and you get all the money right away. You might have to ship 25,000 liters to this warehouse and sell them off slowly, maybe ship 50,000 to another warehouse and sell them off in a few different chunks. But over time, over 3, 4, 5 days, however long it takes you to sell off those crops, you'll probably make a lot more money than you would have selling them in the game. And one way that I always use to compare that is by looking at the seasons menu, seeing what the highest price on the chart is for that crop, and then comparing that to the price that I would get on the global market. And so if you're shipping your crops and you've hit ship goods, it's deducted the money, your goods are on their way, and you want to be able to check how do you know when exactly they're going to arrive at the destination, and how much did I send again? I can't remember how much I sent to that warehouse. You just click on your shipping tab and it shows you everything you need to know about where your crops are headed. So for instance, I did a server export, so I brought the crops to customs on my server, created a crop sale to send them to my warehouse, not direct sell. So I did a server export to my warehouse, and of course that's my home warehouse of Sweden, of canola for 45,000 liters. And it even tells you who completed that. So if there's any issues, then you know who you could talk to, as they're the ones who completed the contract. So then from there, I said, okay, I've got 45,000 liters of canola at my Sweden warehouse. I shipped 20,000 of those to Egypt. I shipped 15,000 of those to Poland, and I sold a few of them in Sweden because there were a couple buy orders for a pretty decent price there. Now on the flip side, I purchased some corn in Ireland for a low price. I think it was around $250 per 1,000 liters. And then I thought I'm going to ship that to the Netherlands, where corn was selling for $450 or $500 per 1,000 liters. So I could make a pretty good profit off of that. So I had 19,281 liters, and I shipped that from Ireland to the Netherlands. And so as you can see, all of these are within the same region. They're either within Europe or at least within that same central region. So I've positioned my warehouses to all be within 4 hours of shipping distance. So hopefully you have an idea now of how the global market works. You can buy and sell crops and try to make a profit. You'll quickly learn which crops and products have higher margins and which ones have lower margins. But no matter what, as long as you buy low and sell high, you should be in great shape. I do recommend not trying to go too big too quickly. It's taken me a little bit to build up to this many warehouses, and I'm sure there are people out there with many, many more warehouses with much higher levels. But stick within your own comfort zone. Remember that you do need capital to purchase the crops, so you're not just pretending to buy them or something like that. In order to buy the crops in your warehouse, you need to have the money. So I can't go out and buy 100,000 liters worth of soybeans for $1,000 per 1,000 liters because I just don't have that much money in my Meta account. So make sure that you've got the capital to be able to buy what you want to buy. Of course, when you're buying and selling, you'll start to make money, and from there, you'll want to transfer money back out to your web account. So if you go to Funds Transfers, right at the bottom is sending the money to your web account from your Meta account. And of course, the very important thing to note is that you do have a limit of how much you can send from your Meta to your web account each in-game year. So that's 12 real-life days you have to transfer that much money. It will reset, so mine started at about 215,000, I believe. So I've transferred about $150,000 from my Meta to my web account so far this in-game year, and I can move 65,000 more. So if I was to move money over to my web account now, that number would go down, and then I would only be able to transfer the new amount that it shows there. So for instance, I've got $60,000 in my Meta account currently. If I want to transfer out $10,000, I send my money to the web. Now I've got $10,000 in my web account, $50,000 in my Meta account, and we scroll down, we see that this number is now $55,000 instead of $65,000. And if you transfer money into your Meta account from your web account so that you can maybe lease a new warehouse or buy some more crops, that number's not going to increase. So if I transfer $30,000 in here, it's still going to be $55,000. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on that limit so that you know how much you can transfer back out to your web account if you need it to maybe pay your bills, your invoices, your loan payments, anything like that. Because if you're not able to do that, then you might get yourself in some financial trouble. The nice thing is that web to Meta and Meta to web transfers can be completed any number of times per day. It's automatic, it's instantaneous, unlike back and forth from the game to the website or website to game. Those are only once every 24 hours. But the web to Meta and Meta to web, those are anytime you'd like. So hopefully that's taught you the basics of the global market, how you lease warehouses, how you upgrade them, how you renew them, how to get import and export permits so that you can ship crops between countries to get yourself better prices, as well as the mechanics of actually buying and selling the crops and products themselves, making sure that you're keeping an eye on the minimum and the remaining amounts in the buy and sell orders, watching the prices, buying on the top right, selling on the bottom left. And so it's my hope that this knowledge will give you the ability to make yourself some extra money here on the global market, get better prices, have some fun, get yourself that new combine harvester you've been looking at. Please do let me know in the comments if there's anything that I haven't answered that you'd really like to know. Thank you very much for watching, and happy selling!